All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Blue Star Rising, the Templar Awakening. It's Michael Henry Dunn here with my esteemed colleague and friend, Reverend Maia Nortumid. Hey there, Maia. How are you doing today?
Oh, doing fine. Thank you, Michael.
All right. Well, we're going to get right to the video that we have to share with you today, which is on a pretty remarkable occurrence of information being released both through Google Maps of an area in the notorious Area 51, um, apparently disclosing what some people are calling a Stargate. And so we're going to be addressing the difference between Stargates and portals, but a map was also recently released showing highly detailed information of the location of portals and stargates and other very important nexuses, you might call them, on planet Earth, going back into ancient history and right up to the current day with its implications. So we are now going to share this video with you, in which Maia takes you through the analysis of this map and its meaning, and then we'll come right back to explore. So please enjoy the video, and we'll be right back to dive into it with you.
I'm creating this video on September 15th, 2021. I felt that I needed to bring together some thoughts and some Thothic information on something that is circulating on the internet. It is an interesting map. And I was made aware of this map by watching an episode of Third Phase of the Moon. I will place a link to that episode below this video. As you can see, the map is quite interesting. I'm just going to leave it up there so you can take a good look at it. Now, according to what I received from Thoth, this map was intentionally released to the internet by a capstone group of 25, usually just refers to them as the 25, of the Inner Light Network. Now, the Inner Light Network is something that Thoth has been speaking to me about at least since the 1990s, possibly the late 1980s. And it composes all of us, that is, all who are working for the light, on this planet, off this planet, and in the inner earth. So that's a broad spectrum. However, the 25 are the capstone. So the capstone group know exactly what they're doing, and they are directly communicating frequently with the star kindred, the inner earth kindred, all of those helping us to achieve the ascension, or as Thoth calls it, the moment of transference, light principle 40. So back to the map. The original map, which you do not see here, was given to them by the star kindred. They took that map and created one that leaves out certain things that needed to be protected, could not be put out on the internet with safety. But what is remaining on this map is something that the darker side already has a hold of anyway. And they wanted us to have it as well. Now, the map, I believe, has been recopied since its original distribution. I'm not too sure about that, but that was the inference that I received from Thoth. But nonetheless, it is an authentic version of what the 25 released to be given to the public. So, what's on the map? Well, let's take a look at it. The map key SG-Earth's 12 Stargates. Now, again, this map isn't complete. So we're going to bear that in mind as we read through this. I'm not going to be addressing every single thing that's brought up here because Thoth is not going to be addressing it. He has his own reasons. So let's just look at what we can see. But that's the first one. The second one is Earth's 15 natural star crystal seals. Now this, he concurs, there are 15 natural star crystal seals. And what he tells me about these seals is that they are as it says here, natural. They are in place through the higher angelic spectrum. That's the best way I can describe it. And he has told me in the past about the natural skull that or capstone that keeps our energy field intact, so that we cannot go beyond that until we are ready for it. Now, it's natural. Is nobody pressing buttons and says, oh, they're ready for it, so we'll open the gate. It is a natural functioning system of Gaia. So when we're ready to move past that point, the system will allow us to do so. So these natural star crystal seals, he's telling me now, because I've never seen this term before or heard it from him, relate to that. These are the system has in place to be able to control that frequency modality. Now, if these star seals were ever tampered with, or could be tampered with, that would not be good. But they are something that the negative agenda has in mind to tamper with. I don't believe, from what I receive from Thoth, that it is really possible for them to actually just go in with a screwdriver and take these seals off. But it would not be good for them to fiddle with it, nonetheless. The next is Earth vertical primary accitonal lines. Well, that kind of speaks for itself. There are certain systems, again, in order in the natural alignment of this planet, and the star coordinates form these accitonal lines. Earth horizontal primary ley lines. Well, the ley lines are more centralized from the frequencies of the planet itself. So you have the accitonal lines, which are more involved with the stellar frequencies integrating with Earth, and you have the ley lines that are producing from the center of the Earth the frequencies that meet it and create the lacework, shall we say, across the planet between the accitonal and the ley. Next is Q, Earth's 12 CUE sites / inner Earth SGs. This especially interests me. So let's take a look at it. From Thoth, I'm receiving that this has to do with quantum cubic frequencies. And of course, as many of you know, my main project with Thoth right now, which I have a whole team on it, is the Quantum Logica Interactive, and we work with quantum cubes. Not only the technology of 9010 quantum cubes, but the higher forms of cubic energy. So Thoth is telling me that this directly connects to the work we are doing with the cubic frequencies that are coming from the inner Earth's hierophi through our system of cubes, quantum cubes, and into the crystalline matrix of the Earth. Now, then we go to IV and IH, which would be inner Earth vertical axis-tonal diagonal and inner Earth horizontal Earth diagonal. These are lines that have to do with obviously the inner Earth. And on the video, they're saying, well, is this inner bases or whatever? No, this is the central sonatoma axial designs that link with the regula opsa and that whole thing. It's a science thing, so I'm not going to even try to open that door, even if he would allow me to. But it's obviously, from Thothic perspective, related to the regula opsa and the whole streaming of that current, the Rana and all of it comes into play. Excuse me. So then we go to parallel Earth-star gate axis and parallel Earth vertical axis B tonal lines, parallel Earth horizontal ley lines. These are all things that relate, the second two relate strongly to the first, the parallel Earth Stargate axis. Thoth has already been telling me about how you could access the Stargates through other points indirectly. And he didn't go into great detail on that, but when we were discussing this map in the beginning, and I didn't read this part then, that's what he was telling me, and now I see he's telling me that's what that has to do with. Then we have Earth's 7 unnatural intruder Jehovian seals. Gonna repeat, Earth's 7 unnatural intruder Jehovian seals. Now this is a biggie, and that's why it's partly in the title of this video. I'd never heard of this before, but as I was going over this map with Thoth, this is what he had to say about that. We have a lot of talk about, out there on the internet and everything about the Anunnaki. And certainly the Anunnaki were here and they messed with us and all that happened. But Thoth has said to me for many years, they weren't the first ones. They're the ones that are the rock stars right now because we know about them and they were the most recent in a big way. We still have them around, of course, not the Anunnaki, but the ones that like to mess with us. But the ones that were the biggest intruders in our space thus far have been the Anunnaki. However, as he says, there were others. He never really went into that before, but when I asked him about the Jehovian seals, he said that there are 7 boreholes. And this he equates not like a physical dirt borehole, but an energetic one, like a Stargate that has been forced into a dark space. That's the only way I can put it. When I say dark space, I mean under control of dark entities. But it's more than that. The boreholes are collapsed Stargates. That's what he's telling me right now. So, what are they for? Well, they were originally placed on this planet when we started going down the tubes, when the energy systems of this planet that protected it were beginning to erode for lots of reasons we're not going to go into here. But it happened. And these are conically invested beings, he's not giving them a name, created these boreholes so that they could come back and ravage this planet whenever they wanted to. However, that didn't entirely succeed, certainly it hasn't, because they were sealed away. And they were sealed away by the Sun Lords who returned in the period of reparations. You can listen to my videos on the reparations. I can provide a link for that as well, wherever I'm embedding this video. And during the time of the first reparation, the Sun Lords, when they came back for that reparation, they sealed away these boreholes. Now, they couldn't do away with them for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't have that information in my head at this time. But what Thoth is telling me is that they need to be completely removed before Light Principle 40. And this is part of a process that many light groups are working with, whether they realize it or not. They're contributing to that removal, and that includes Quantum Logica Interactive. And lastly, we have Phoenix and Falcon wormholes. Now, Thoth is telling me that these relate to wormholes that were created when the time tsunami took effect with the last destruction of Atlantis. Atlantis destroyed itself in pieces. I say destroyed itself because of the energy that was created there. But the last of it, where they were fooling around with time, trying to correct mistakes they'd made in the past, they made another mistake, and that was a big one, and that created the time tsunami. Again, I have a video on this, and you can find that on my Nessia site, and I believe that is under the Rana time wave, it's called. In any case, these particular wormholes shouldn't be there in a natural, healthy state of the planet, but they are because of the time tsunami. However, they're not wild and crazy wormholes at this point. They're very small and they're not harmful in the way that they're positioned at this time, unless somebody wanted to play around with them. And again, that is always a possibility because of the negative forces that are still among us at this time, which Thoth calls the Owl, the One World Legion. And they are having their own restructuring right now from the old order to the new order, but the new order is probably even worse than the old one. So anyway, when we look at a map like this, we know that it's like almost up for grabs who is going to control the world, if you think of it on simply a linear level. But the universe does not operate simply on a linear level. And there's much to be said about the intense Metatronic light that's coming our way. But it's up to us as light workers to focus on that light, to invite it in, and to help the higher beings facilitate our own transformation. They can't just do it for us. They have to have our assistance. And they must they must ask for assistance through our genetic field. That's a whole other topic. In conclusion, look for the links below this video where I have embedded it, because I have supplied quite a few that connect to what I'm speaking about here. However, if you're viewing this on my Nessia website, there's no place for links. But you can find these videos, except for the one of Third Phase of the Moon, in my video section. Just look at the categories. It shouldn't take you long to find ones that relate to what I'm speaking about here. But otherwise, they will be below the video. Thank you for listening.
All right, and we are back. So, Maya, this was startling, to see this map and the images come forward on Google Earth regarding Area 51 and what appears to be, according to people who have studied these kind of phenomena for a while, appears to be a Stargate. And so maybe you could elaborate again for our viewers a little bit on the differences between portals and stargates, particularly as they apply to this map we've just seen, and what you regard as the most important implications of this coming forward at this time, and why you have felt a nudge from your Thothic stream to bring this forward at this time.
All right.
So portals and stargates, and what's it all about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, how this came to my attention was I happened to see, and I'm sure that wasn't a happenstance, a show. It's a series, okay, it's called Third Phase of the Moon, and I watch it now and then. It's two twins, a twin guys, and they do a lot of things on UFOs and especially the phenomena of that nature. And they're very good because they're very thorough and they don't get carried away, and they will research and say, well, we don't think this is really real. We've researched it. They're not just jumping on everything. And so I like the show, but I don't watch it a lot because I just don't have time, and there's a lot out there to watch. So I just watch it now and then, but I watched this one, and this particular one, and incidentally, there will be a link to this video that I'm talking about along with all the other links under this show today. And this particular one showed this map, but it also in the video, and I didn't put this in my video that you just saw, but they also show from Google Maps, they do an automatic, I don't know what you call an automatic, animated camera that's moving into Area 51, and it shows what Google creates to simulate what Google is seeing. In other words, I didn't know this, but if Google sees a bunch of stuff there, whatever it is, buildings and whatever, it will try to recreate it in CGI so that you can see more or less what's there. So what it recreated in CGI was this, these arcs and all of this really interesting stuff on the area, the land of Area 51 that they own. And it really did look like a Stargate material, so they were speculating that it possibly was a Stargate. And then they brought out this map, this mysterious map that has all these things on it, Stargates, whatever. And so they were talking about all of this together. Now, as you've already seen from the video, so I'm not going to elaborate too much further here, but the map, according to my connection to Thoth, is genuine. It has been perhaps copied one or two times since, and the original one that was released by the 25 of the Inner Light Network is not the whole map. In other words, what they received from the Star Kindred, certainly more detailed than that and more sophisticated looking. This is a little drawing, etching thing of the original, leaving out things that they didn't want to release to the public. So why did they release it to the public? Well, because it's time, and it's time for us to be able to see what is going on both sides of the fence. What the good guys are doing, to help us out, the Star Kindred, Inner Earth Kindred, and what they have been for so long, and what the other side is doing as well. And of course, the problem with that, the intrinsic problem with that, is that the internet is a free-for-all. So anything can pop up in there. Somebody can just make something up and put it out as real. And, you've got all these problems. And then you have all this Q stuff and all of that that's co-opted some truth. So now the truth is invalid because Q's co-opted it. And then they elaborated on it and created this morass of lies. And, you just don't know where to look. You don't know where to go unless you happen to have an angel on your shoulder, maybe a Thoth on your shoulder. And it's difficult. So I wanted to bring this forward for those who feel there's any validity to my work and what I do, to see what Thoth had to say about this particular map. Because you could say, well, just anybody created that. And that could be, but I didn't receive that. And not only that, there are things on this map that relate to things that I have been speaking about, inner Earth, the star seals, the crystal seals, although that terminology was not given me, it relates directly to what he's been telling me. And I've covered that in the video. I just felt this was an important map, and they wanted it to be released, so they wanted it to be discussed in a clear and valid manner. Now, I'm assuming that what I'm saying is a clear and valid manner. That's, I'm subjective. I cannot possibly be objective because I'm receiving from a source that doesn't sit right next to me and say, "Hi, I'm Thoth." So you have to take my word for it.
Well, sometimes it seems like he does say hi, but most of the time, right. It's not somebody we can have on camera here.
Right. So be that as it may, you still have to take this with a grain of salt, I know. But I'm just presenting very honestly and transparently what I've received on this. And it's based on my over 55, 54, 53, whatever years of work with this entity and with the star kindred that brought me to him. So, I feel confident in it as much as I can as a human being. So that said, what do we want to make of this map? Well, we can see all of this and we can break it down and understand it, but what does it really offer us that can be productive to our ability to live a better life, a more full Metatronic life?
Yeah.
And I can't say that, it has some direct input, but what it does, I feel, is gives us an idea of past, present, and possibly future of this planet. If you look a little more closely at it, for instance, there's a schematic of this planet. There's a natural schematic and there's an unnatural schematic. And there's also the natural that's been embellished very positively to help the planet. And there's an unnatural that's trying to, unravel the direction we're going in. And when I say the direction we're going in, I mean the positive, the greater plan of developing our spiritual natures and bringing us to what Thoth calls, the ascension dynamic, where we shift from a world system 1 to a world system 2, to a more fully productive and spiritual experience. And of course, that's a big topic, and I've gone through it a lot, so I won't go there. But that's where we're going. And the dark forces, you want to call it that, would like us not to go there because they can't vampirize us if we're in that modality. Thoth has spoken so many times to me about the very narrow bandwidth, magnetically heavy, lots of heavy magnetic energy, but a very narrow bandwidth that keeps us in this enslaved environment, that we've been dealing with since the Anunnaki and before, as I mentioned in the video. And of course, we have all the light stuff going on too, but we've got this enslavement of the human mind and consciousness that's been going on for so long. And of course, we invite it into our world experience. Thoth is very clear about that. We aren't the victims. We invited it in, but we're in a sorry mess. And right at this point, I think, wasn't that Oliver Hardy? This is a sorry mess.
Yes, Dan Laurel, Laurel and Hardy.
And so,
a fine mess you've gotten us into
this time, Laurel. Yes. So, we're to be pitied, if anything else, I guess, by the star beings. And so, they're trying to offer us things like this little bit of a map to show us that there is a route, there is a connection, there is a path and a plan, and the plan isn't immutable. It can be liquid in its ability to absorb what is needed at the time to bring us out of the impasse and into the light. And so, this is just one little piece, but I felt it was important enough to bring forward in this show, especially the part about the can't say it, the Jehovah's seals, which I had not heard about before. But when Thoth began to tell me about them, since I asked, since they were on the map, I felt that was a very eye-opening,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, me too. Let me just ask you about briefly the etymology of Jehovian, right? Now, Jehovah is a late occurring Protestant name for God the Father as a sort of bastardized derivation of Yahweh, which is, of course, the Old Testament, Hebraic term. And sometimes Jehovian is abbreviated to Jovian, which is different because that refers to Jupiter, the planet and the god Jupiter in a Roman, pagan context. And so, the Jehovian seals, I mean, that's a word that appears on the map. And do you receive anything about why particularly it's called Jehovian seals?
Well, as I recall I have to recall way back, but many years ago, Thoth spoke briefly to me about Yahweh and the connection that it is a presentation of a governing form of the God space. If you think of God as not a being, but an energy field that is beyond anything we can imagine, that has a central point to focus, the source, and you have stages and of this radiance, and it's all organized energy, divinely organized. And so he said that Yahweh was a platform to learn, to grow, to understand, but it had a limitation on it. And that this limitation, I'm just speaking, the best I can at the moment, but this limitation, anything that has a limit like that to its progress means that if you learn all you can from that, and you're not willing to go beyond it, or something, you feel somehow seized by it, that you can't go beyond it, because all of these things have a certain magnetic energy to them. If they're a limited construct, it's a magnetic energy, because that's what limits it. It has to have a magnetic field around it to do that. So I would say that what he was indicating was Jehovah was a created platform to help people understand within a certain diameter, but it was also used at times by the archonic beings, because they could, it's almost like a hermit crab. You leave the shell empty and another little crab crawls in, it's like they were able to use that shell for certain purposes at later times. So you can't say Jehovah. No, Yahweh, that's what I'm trying to say. You can't say Yahweh is bad, and you can't say Yahweh is good. It's a construct that has been used by both. Now, to go to Jehovah, boy, I'm having trouble. To go to Jehovah, it is another form of that. It's basically sort of a watered down version of that. But at the same time, you're getting more and more into trapped consciousness when you use those terms.
Right. Yeah. Because I'm resonating with what you're saying about Yahweh being like a stage, a platform for a certain limited understanding that then gets transcended. There are those who speak of Yahweh as being what's called a demiurge, is one term for it, that if we go with the idea that that was a stage and a platform that had a certain learning limitation to it, which is supposed to be transcended and moved beyond, but then like the hermit crab comes in, well, then we have, the patriarchal, the Hebraic culture when Judaism first emerged. And this is when, in your receiving, the original of the Ark of On needed to be tamped down because the Hebrew priests at that time, being in a patriarchal culture, did not like the fact that only the priestesses could work with the Ark of On, simply as an electromagnetic fact that men would die if they tried to. So the tamped down version of the Ark of the Covenant was, created so that the men, priests, could work with it. And then that was accompanied by, of course, a corrupt rebellion in which priestesses were not only repressed but murdered, as were the men who supported them, the consorts and protectors. And so I don't want to get too far off track here, but I think it's important because for a lot of people, when they see the word Jehovian and they'll look at that and go, whoa, what's that about? To me, in the context of the map, it's this, being a writer and feeling the energy of words, it's this sort of Big Daddy sealed this up for you kind of thing, because what you bring forward in the video we've just seen is that these Jehovian seals were placed over what is called unnatural incursions onto, into the earth field of archonically infested. I think you use the word either invested or infested beings.
Invested, invested.
Invested, archonically invested, which essentially means more or less possessed of vampiric, archonic cloud energy or consciousness that seeks to dominate selfishly and oppress. These are the two dynamics between, when we talk about natural and unnatural, you talk about an orientation of for the greatest good of all, and a selfish orientation of service to self, service to immediate self-gratification, domination, etc. And so these seals were put in place because boreholes had been created in order to allow these archonically invested beings to invade the earth plane whenever they wanted to suck it dry and enslave humanity for their own purposes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's about it.
Yeah. So just moving on past the Jehovian thing, because the hermit crab thing that you said about the Yahweh concept having served its usefulness and being outlived. Well, the bad guys go, oh, we've got this nice abandoned little platform concept called Yahweh, with all of its patriarchal implications and oppression of the feminine. Let's just co-opt this, move into the abandoned shell, and use it to continue to oppress the feminine. That's kind of just a little background on the Jehovah Yahweh thing. And of course, the Cathars and the Templars. The Cathars very specifically, and this is one of the few things we know about the Cathars, which is that there were debates with the Vatican who were trying to persuade the Cathars, no, you need to get in line. You need to, abandon your concepts of the divine feminine, of reincarnation, of equality between men and women, and your rejection of the Old Testament. And in the debates, the Vatican would always come out looking foolish because the Cathars would say, well, there's the Old Testament, and over Christ says, Moses and the law say this, but I tell you this: love them that hate you, do good to them that despitefully use you, turn the other cheek, etc. Anyway, so because this is Blue Star Rising, the Templar awakening, when it comes to these little points, I just like to take a few minutes to sort of set it in place. And so, of course, eventually the Vatican colluded in what was essentially a false flag at the time in order to incite the massacre, the genocide of the Cathars that goes by the name the Albigensian Crusade. So getting round back to this map, the part about it that strikes me most forcefully as being really relevant to what's going on today. First of all, there's the location of the Stargates in the key areas of the Middle East that, for example, Iraq, that some people are saying was the actual motive, behind the invasion of Iraq. And
it was the top motive. Thoth says that there's other motives, money, and then there's money, and there's also money.
Right.
But the top motive, the secret motive, beyond all motives, was indeed that. He told me that many years ago.
Yeah. So in what way do you perceive? Now we know about the boreholes being used by the archonically invested beings to vampirize the planet, being sealed. And so, given that the new guard of the cabal, that we'll call it, is taking over and apparently is predicating their whole plan for taking over as the One World League on their control of these Stargates, in what way could they use them to facilitate their takeover?
Well, I'm sure there's plenty of ways that I have not been privy to, that, because we're putting this out publicly, and I don't even know. But I will tell you,
some things Thoth doesn't want you to know, right?
Right. There's definitely things. It's for my own good, and
Yeah.
everybody else's, I'm sure. But what I do know, or I think I know, is that
How could they use them? How could they use them for their own? I know. You see, I do that all the time. I come up with like, okay, here's the paragraph I'm about to say, but in order to set this up correctly for you, I'm going to speak for the next 30 seconds, by which time I will have forgotten what it is I'm going to say.
I just did. I totally forgot.
Right. Well, here we go. It's how they're going to use them.
Dear sir.
Tune in again. What was that again?
I said, enlighten me, dear sir. Yes.
Enlighten me. Yeah.
So what was I going? Where was I going with this?
You were going with it. I asked you the question, how would the new guard use the Stargates they now supposedly control? And you said, well, there's many ways they might use them, but do you,
yes.
yeah,
okay.
you want to elaborate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Well, the main thing, and the top thing is that they can use them to change the timelines. And that means they can herd us as little cows and sheep down another timeline. And what does that really mean? That's such a big topic. And honestly, Thoth spoke to me about timelines long before it became popular. I mean, now everybody is talking about timelines, but I swear to you, this was something that he was talking about, long time ago to me. And so the way timelines work, just basically, is that everything in our reality is streaming from a central consciousness. And that consciousness, as scary as it might seem, that we call God, is the accommodating field that attaches to all ensouled beings, because we're part of God. We're part of that celestial orbit. We may be way down below and over here, and the angels are here, and but we're here. We're part of it. We are part of it. And so our reaction to things, I say, not even in the carnated being, although that certainly plays a large role in it because we're here right now, but the soul, it's like everything is modified, accommodated to the soul in its environment. So the environment for us, we're incarnated on this earth, here we are, and we have what Thoth calls a consensual reality. Now, everybody sees things differently, a little bit here and there, but we know that the door opens, you twist the knob, the door opens, and you can walk through, and there's 3D, and you can, we know this is our consensual reality. If we had a consensual reality that said your foot was on your head and your arm was on your toe, it would be that way. because the way we organize it, the cells obey it, the DNA obeys it, everything obeys our direction. Scary, I know. Not in the little ways. Like I couldn't just say, oh, well, I want, that tree to turn into a pillar of salt. Well, no, of course, unless I was extremely powerful, I couldn't do that. But if the consensual reality of everyone on the planet, or a certain amount of everyone, said that tree could be turned into a pillar of salt, by God, it would be. And that would be absolute. And we wouldn't know anything else. We wouldn't know it was ever a tree because we consensually said, no, it's not a tree, it's a pillar of salt. So that's the way reality spins its web. And in that play, that dynamic, if someone were to be able to tap a timeline, like you have little strings running across, let's say you got this beautiful playing game board in front of you, okay? And there's a little pin sticking up, and there's little strings running all through, like you saw on the map, all these little strings. And what if somebody just goes, bing, 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 let's take this tight over here. You have a completely different game. And that is what is the potential that they would like to access. Now, already there are subways to do that, subways. And that is, if you get enough people thinking something, like the Anunnaki did all. We're descendants of the Anunnaki. We are their slaves. We can't change our DNA because they gave it to us, and they're, which is a false picture. Yes, they were here. Yes, they messed with us, but this big rock star thing people making out of the Anunnaki, that's not only is it not valid, it's a dangerous path to go. It's one of the things they plant because they want to herd us into certain areas, and they've decided on certain triggers to do that. And one of them, and they almost always take something that has reality to it, not a complete lie. It has to have a basis in reality, because we got to feel it. Our inner being knows that there was these beings that now we're calling Anunnaki that messed with us somewhere way back in time. That's true. So they take that and then they develop it into what they want to see and show you. And that has a trigger that is connected to this trigger, that's connected to this trigger, that's connected to this trigger. And it all just takes you down the line. However, that is not something that can't be immediately disbanded by just a few people saying, wait a minute. Take a look at this. And everybody goes, oh, okay. And they leave the path. So what they want to do is they want to ensure that path. And that's why they want the energies of the Stargates. Now, because Stargates are sophisticated devices, not just portals, they are greatly protected. And it's not that easy, unless, there are Stargates that have been messed up, but they've collapsed. So they can't be greatly misused. It's a long dynamic. I can't go into it all here, but the point is the higher beings that have created the Stargates, even though sometimes they can be tampered with, sometimes they can be collapsed and co-opted in certain ways, the Stargates are pretty impervious to direct and total subjugation to a negative stream of consciousness. It has happened to some degree, not total, in certain areas and times of the universe, like on the planet far, far away, it has happened, but it is very, very rare and has never been complete. It hasn't been anything that can't be regenerated in some way.
But it
and
remains,
that's the way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So we could say, well, we're out of danger then, but no, it could be fiddled with. As I use the word fiddled, because you can fiddle with something, and you, like, if you're trying to make a TV set in the old days, your television set, and you're trying to get a station that is kind of tricky to get, and you're fiddling with it, and maybe you get it so you got a staticky version of it, but you can't really get the station. Well, they can do that much, and they could, if they had they could do it, but they couldn't get a clear station of it, not using a Stargate, because the Stargate's not going to let them the way it's designed. Right. However, they don't really need to do that. What they could do with just a staticky version would be enough to put us in the swamp. Right. So that is kind of the scenario. And okay. So that's why they want that so badly. And I'm sure there are various dimensions of that, but that's the main thing.
Yeah, and that's actually been a theme, that a lot of people, as you say, timelines have become a very popular topic in the last 10 years or so. And Thoth was talking to you about timelines like 30, 40 years ago, right?
Well, not quite that long, but at least 20.
Okay. So, like, for example, leading up to December 21st, 2012, there was a lot of discussion in the alternative media and people who were following what 2012 meant, that as far as the cabal was concerned, that they had this looking glass technology, Stargate technology, that allowed them to look down timelines, and that they'd had it for some decades, and they could not see past December 21st, 2012, because there was this convergence of timelines that took place, and that there was a timeline war going on. And there's timeline 1 and timeline 2. Timeline 1, the bad guys win and we're slaves. Timeline 2, we get past December 21st, 2012 without their agenda having been implemented. And it's like all bets are off, humanity has a chance, right?
Mhm.
And then fast forward to, I think it's 2018, you know, and I went on Project Camelot, interviewed by Carrie Cassidy. And the interview was titled 5G and the Ascension Timeline. And I brought forward some of what you had already shared with me from Thoth about the box canyon timeline that the Cabal wants to herd everybody into, and it's fear-based, and it's based on a lot of this distortion of the story of humanity that they would like to do. And this is actually a very common counterintelligence tactic in intelligence agencies, which disinformation is based on taking something true that your target demographic really either wants to believe or already does believe, and then distort it, slant it, play with it, amplify it, make it look ridiculous depending on what they want to do. But it's something that it's very important to be aware of, because you see it playing out all the time. And certainly the Anunnaki as the rock stars of the human story who messed with us and they're our overlords forever is a bunch of BS. It's but it works for them. The Denver airport, there's thousands of people, millions of people a year passing through the Denver airport with its strange little sculptures and art pieces and tableau of the story of the Anunnaki taking over humanity. And that's supposed to be the big deep underground military base underneath the Denver airport, which is probably there from all reports.
Yeah.
But again, it's just this subtle way, as I say, of messing with our consciousness. And so I like to believe that part of the reason you receive the urge to get this material out, to put this understanding on this map and on the Stargate portal phenomenon, at this time, was to help spread the awareness. Don't buy the rock star thing. Don't buy the Anunnaki thing. Understand the bigger dynamic and understand how it's playing into this moment. And also just to make the bad guys nervous that, holy smokes, this inner light network is apparently real, and these top 25, whoever they are smoking us out and exposing.
I'd like to bring something up here, and I haven't even had a chance to discuss this with you, Michael. This is hot off the press.
Hot, all right, love that.
But well, some of it isn't. We're going to go back to some things you are familiar with, and I think it was about 2017, not long after I moved back to Crestone, I had a rather powerful dream where I was on this small island, very small, and I could look across, and there was another small island just right next to it. So there's just a little bit of water between the two. And the second island had this little pointy mountain, I guess you'd say, but it's really pointy, just went up to the top. And I saw that, and I was looking across, and all of a sudden I realized that my mother was standing next to me. Of course, she's been gone for a while now, but she was right there, and she played a large role in my life in regard to my light work. I would not be doing what I'm doing today. I probably wouldn't have even lived this long if it hadn't been for my mother. So she's a big part of it all. So here she is standing next to me, and I realized that I'm not a person. I'm a little owl. Now, I'm a nice little owl. I'm not an owl like One World Legion owl. I am a cute little fluffy owl. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'm right next to my mother, and I turn and I'm looking, whoa, 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 whoa. And she is saying to me, well, you know what you have to do, dear? And I think, oh, I don't want to do it. Oh, no, no, no. And she says, you have to go into that place because that's your job. You need to help the planet by going in. She said, I've done it. I don't want to do it anymore. Please. Oh, no, no. It was almost like a cartoon, And so, but underneath all of this was a very real feeling like, oh, no, 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 I just can't go back there. Oh, no, dang it, I can't. And she said, she was very gentle, but she said, you know, this is so important. Your soul has opted to do this. I'm using my own words right now, but this was the essence of it. So I finally said, okay, I'll do it again. And then the dream ended. Well, I was like on it immediately. Thoth, what is this? What is going on here? And he said, you were on the interdimensional sort of brigadoon-like island that's called High Brazil, Hy, one word, then Brasil.
Brasil.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Which is supposed to be a mythical island that appears and disappears off the coast of Ireland. There's a whole story to that. But I was told by Thoth, you were on that island with your mother, and because it's an interdimensional island, it can shoot you into, teleport you into various timelines that are specifically connected to helping the planet. Well, not the timelines themselves, but you're being able to get into those timelines. And they're souls, people, not just me, certainly not, who are helping to work to do something in these alternate timelines that are where we don't want to go. But we have to go in our dream time, sleep, whatever, to work with this. He would never say, what do I do? What am I doing? I don't know. So he showed me that where I was going was into the new, the rainbow order, the new guard, time frame, like they'd succeeded. Okay. They'd succeeded. They'd taken over the earth. Okay. And it was off the coast of, well, actually the whole California area was broken up into these islands, especially the lower part, and these large islands. And I would go there to do whatever it was I was doing, probably with a group of other people, to help to change something so that wouldn't happen for us, so that we wouldn't go down that timeline, that it's a fractured reality, and the fracture would just dissipate and just, dissolve. So it's interesting, because when he told me that, I realized that for so many years, I've had dreams, and I don't have them so much anymore, but I've had these dreams where I'm with a bunch of people, and we're all in some environment. It's not another world, not another planet, like, it's Earth, but it's changed, it's different. And there are people that we're hiding from, there are people that we're trying to help. They're empty buildings, large empty buildings, and we go into these buildings, they all seem pristine, but everybody's gone. And it's just, I've had dreams like that for years. And all of a sudden it made sense. I knew that they weren't just dreams. Maybe they came back into my mind as sort of little fractured realities of what I was really experiencing in these alternate states. So that happened. And then, of course, I found out more about High Brazil. Oh, and I looked it up on a map, and it looks just like that. Whoever drew this map to say this is what High Brazil looks like was accurate, because I saw it. I was standing on one little island, and when I looked to the other, the pointy top, there it was on the map. You have these little points. It looked just, just like that. So anyway, now let's fast forward to now. And a few nights ago, I had a very interesting dream. And I believe it was connected to the fact that right now, in my living room over there, I'm working with an alternate cube for our quantum logic interactive, because I have the two cubes that make a terminal, my terminal, which is the main one for the whole setup, that now has nearly 30 cubes, aka terminals, mostly in this country, but some in other countries as well, forming our network for broadcasting for the planet. So this particular cube is an auxiliary, as it's called, and it is being designated to work with time frequencies. He both calls it the time machine. Not that I'm going to jump into the time machine and go off somewhere, but the point is it works with harmonizing, with balancing time waves. Now, understand that me in this little box, or even all of our quantum logic, we're not sitting around changing the world. We're one little cog in a wheel. But that little cog is connected to another little cog. It's connected to another little cog. So we are doing our part. And our part is to do this setup and do what we're doing here. So I was being given by Thoth the other day some more information about this work we're going to be doing with my auxiliary and how it connects to the whole terminals and the whole thing. So that night I went to bed and I had this dream. And I don't have a lot of really fantastic dreams, believe it or not, but this one was very interesting. It was very real. I was in this huge, large building, and I don't know what it actually looked like in total because I was just me in the building, but I had a feeling it was very, very large. And at the time it was empty, like very similar to the empty buildings that I've been in the past. And I looked around and it was all white and very sterile, very new, just perfect, right? But you felt like, ugh, something's not right about this, you know? And then I looked around and they'd opened the doors. Somebody come open the doors and all these people were coming through. Now I knew this wasn't inner earth or anything like that because they were, you know, people, they had clothes, they looked like people in our environment here. And they were coming in, but they were very quiet. They weren't chattering away or excited about seeing some show or something in there. They were just, and they didn't look like zombies. They looked like normal people, just kind of walking in, you know, without any real expression. And there were a lot of them. They were packed like sardines. And I was like, ew, I stayed back, you know, and I looked for a door to get out of. I had a feeling I don't want to be packed in this place with all these people. And I saw a little door and I went out the door and it went up some steps. And I was out in the sunlight and I looked and there was this whole building was on sort of a massive mound, I would say, a massive mound. And the mound was beautifully terraced and it had these lawns that were perfect, too perfect, just green lawns, you know, green lawns. And there was this rolling a driveway or pathway of white. It went down and down, wound through the lawns, you know. I didn't see any trees. And I was looking at this, and then I noticed there was this man with certain shirt and tie, you know, sitting there, and he had some kind of a camera. He says, "You're in the way." He says, "We're filming this. You can't go." I said, "I wanted to get out of here." He said, "Well, you can't go that way." He said, "Because we're filming. And I said, "Okay, well, where can I go?" And he said, "Well, walk around there and go down that way." And that was where it ended. So in the morning, I couldn't get this out of my mind. And I said, "Where the heck was I, Thoth?" And he said, "You were in a place in the United States on a timeline of the new world, you know, I can't say it now, the new guard, you know, the new guard. This is the world of the new guard. This is the building and it's very large. And this is that timeline." And I realized that's the timeline where I'm going to do whatever I do with certainly many other people to make it so it won't happen. And so I was looking at it and I said, "Well, what was that building for? What were all those people doing in there?" And he said, "Oh, they were going in for their indoctrination, you know, for their indoctrination. And it's not just a one-time thing. They go in and they get their, you know, or whatever they need for their whatever." So, you know, kind of a horror story, but it was very real. And I tell these things not to scare people. I know it's scary, but to say that it hasn't happened yet, not to us. And it's not a done deal at all.
Right. And the other thing about the urgency of this information coming in, the map, the Google Earth images, etc., is I believe you shared that there is a window of urgency between now, here today on September 17th and October 6th.
Yes, it started September 1st through October 6th. That's what
right. And that you compared it, you received the image of it being like the Titanic has seen the iceberg and is frantically reversing engines, spinning the steering wheel, doing everything to like, gotta slow down the momentum, gotta slip past that iceberg. And, you know, it's a wonderful scene in the movie, of course, where, you know, the poor guy in the lookout, and he's sent that you can see that, the engines go whoosh, whoosh, going in reverse. We're trying to spin, and it's the momentum towards the iceberg, and the poor guy in the lookout is going, turn, please, turn, and of course we know what happens. So it's like we're almost between now and October 6th, there's something going on the planet, multiple things going on the planet that could take a really bad turn if we don't slip past the iceberg.
Yes,
but it's going to be a near thing.
But the keynote
was involved.
The keynote that was given me was not the bad turn, but the good turn. In other words, the keynote was showing me that here's the iceberg, here's the ship, and it went and just passed it.
Right.
So it wasn't gearing back. It wasn't struggling. It wasn't go, oh my God, we're going to strike. It was like, oh, I think I'll just turn the wheel this way. Okay, now we've missed it. So it wasn't saying, oh, it's going to be easy and don't worry about it. It'll just happen. It was saying it can be that smooth. It can be. And we're helping to make it that way, but it's not a done deal yet.
Yeah, and that somehow, as you say, one cog in the wheel is the quantum cube logica and the network and the rest of it, but it's an important one. And that somehow this work is helping in a significant way for us to slip past this particular timeline between now and October 6th, right? Which feels really close. It's got a couple of weeks. I'm making appointments past that date.
Well, again, it was a good feeling. It was not a bad. Yes, there wasn't. It wasn't a perfect. Oh, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. But it was like, hey, just keep on course with us. Connect with us, all of you on the planet. Let's work together on this. We can do it. We're just going to slip right by. We're going to do it. Just going to,
Yeah.
So it was like a go team go.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. That's good.
And of course, but then I said, oh, so we get past this, and then we're and he said, no, there's going to be more.
There's more icebergs out there.
But there are more icebergs, but we're going to miss this one, and it's an important one, and we will miss it, but we'll get close enough to it that we're going to feel the chill. The little droplets are going to fall on the boat.
Right. Okay. A little wake-up call. A little chips off an iceberg on your holiday deck is always a wake-up call. So another thing that that comes in for me about this, there's one thing on the map that I noticed that nobody commented on. So you can see, there's, Giza and, okay, here's Stonehenge, here's Machu Picchu, and here's Easter Island, and and there's the Middle East and Iraq and all these places. Right in the middle, it says Montsegur.
Yeah, I saw that.
Nobody comments on it. There's not a particular symbol there. And Montsegur, of course, is the hilltop fortress in the Languedoc region of France, which was the last refuge of the Cathars, and where les parfaits, I think they're called, the perfected ones, took refuge and ultimately were burned alive, like 144 Cathar souls. It was that, and the rumors, the legends that that some slipped out, some escaped with, relics or the Holy Grail or the bones of the Magdalene or maps to treasure, who knows what. But I just found it very interesting that Montsegur was on that map. Do you receive anything about the significance of that?
Well, I saw it instantly. I mean, not instantly, but pretty quickly. I saw it there. And I just was going back in time with Thoth here, if I can crank it back a little bit. He had spoken about that area as being, aside from the history that it created, at that time, if you take it way back, it was a very, very holy point on the planet. And a lot of, right now he's telling me, so I can't really separate what he told me then from what he told me now, but I'm just going to say what I'm getting right now. And that is that there are points on the planet that are especially aligned to the angelic I want to say realm, but maybe that isn't even the right word, the angelic uh, stations of light, the angelic stations of light. And that's one point that is. And what does that mean? It means that very often souls gather there to uplift something in a very dramatic and powerful way. And life being what it is, and our history being what it is, often that dramatic and powerful way is through a mass exodus of souls through death, through some kind of traumatic death that they assume for a spiritual purpose. Now, let's put it on pause for a moment. Obviously, the Cathars walked into the flames rather than give up their knowledge. Think of the mound, and often it's a high place or near a high place. Think of I've been there in Israel. Oh my gosh, my words.
Right. The word is almost on the tip of my lips as well. The famous
the famous
fortress of where it was the Jewish revolt of 70 AD, and it was their last.
And I have physically been atop that.
Rather than surrender to the Romans and accept the deification of the Roman emperors as their new god that they chose. And I'll think of it. I'll look it up. But
well, it's something I should know as well as my own name, and so that's a little.
Yeah,
I don't remember it right now. Anyway, so they all chose to die, instead of surrender. So where these places are, where people made a stand for their spiritual self, it wasn't even their beliefs. Yes, their beliefs, but it went deeper than that. Is a place that has this angelic connection to it, and it allows the energies of the planet to literally be bled, to be opened and bled for light. Of course, the old bleeding technique for healing is barbaric, but I can't help but compare it to that in a positive way. In that, in this instance, when the vein is cut, sometimes the exodus of souls in a spiritual purpose, willing to give their lives in that way, literally creates a sovereign state of awareness that is you can't achieve unless you give up something that's very, very dear to you. You have to put it on the line, Yeah. So back to Monseigneur, that is the kind of energy it creates. So it would be a place that would be very sacred in the term that we use. It would offer a lot of light, but it would also be a place that had a lot of suffering. The death thing, there's a trauma involved in that. So you have a traumatic cap, and then you have the light above it. This is an interesting mixture that often attracts negative energy, because you see, the thing about the negativity is it has a lack of light. It's separated itself from its true light form, because everything comes from the light. So if you separate yourself from your true light form, you're always seeking the light, even though you might say, I don't want that nasty old light. No, who wants light? I want darkness. No, the inner being is saying, oh God, I want to get back to that light, but I don't know how to do it. All I know how to do is to take, to steal in the night, to vampirize. So that must be the way I'm going to get my light. And that is how it works. So places of great light often have a certain level. It's down a low on the horizon, but it's there, of this dark intrinsic turmoil path that wants to rise up out of the muck and grab what it can of this, what it thinks it wants out of the light, because it doesn't even understand what light is, and yet it craves it.
Yeah, so it's Masada was the place.
Masada. Oh yes, Masada.
The hilltop fortress in Israel where they all took their own lives rather than.
Yes.
And but other places and events like that come to mind. For example, my French is terrible, the Ile de Jeux, the island in the Seine right by Notre Dame in Paris, where Jacques de Molay and his fellow Templar knights chose to be burned at the stake rather than accept the false confessions, which demonized the Templar order during King Philip IV's take down and massacre the Templars. That
And also Saint Joan of Arc, I'm receiving now, even she was the one person, her light was so profound that it also created this angelic vortex there.
right, yeah, which and of course the reports were that her heart would not burn when the ashes at the stake where she was burned were found, and that rather than have that become a relic or have someone steal it, the English and their French associates, such as Archbishop Colchon, threw her heart into the Loire, into the river. I'm trying to remember where that took place. Doesn't matter, but yeah, it's the spot of Joan's martyrdom is a holy place, as is the spot in Florence where Savonarola was burned at the stake. There's another famous one. Yeah, so it's I mean, as I say, it's scary and sad on one level, but it is this holy sacrifice that was done. And this kind of thing happens, in the lower ages that we're in. It's where, in the lower reaches of Kali Yuga, an avatar comes to Earth, and rather than being a philosopher king revered by all, he's nailed to a cross. So yeah, and of course you have Calvary and the holy energies there. Well,
One
so
thing
thank you for that. Go ahead.
was showing me, and I don't have a full picture of this yet, so I debated whether to mention it, but I will. And last night, I think it was, he was showing me the map that we're looking at here, and then he overlaid on it these diamonds of, well, they're probably what do you call them? Gosh, I can't think of the geometry, but they're dimensional, so they're not flat diamonds. But I saw it like diamonds on the map, a diamond shape. And he showed me these, and they were color coded. So they had, and interestingly, the top half of the diamond had one color, and the bottom half had another. And then this one would have a different two colors. And and there were several, quite a few, placed on the map like that. And I asked what that was for, and he said that these are places where the Merkaba ships of these diamond-like ships will come to readjust the frequencies, to shift the archonic overlays, not just the Jehovah See, the archonic overlays on the whole thing, that's being caused by all this 5G and all this other stuff that's going on. And that they would be placed strategically to do this. I don't know if we get to see them. I don't know. That would be a trip, wouldn't it? But whatever, that they're going to be placed there to do this. However, it's not like this is going to happen tomorrow, because we have to do our job. We have to work in the ways that we are working, like our little group is with the quantum logic. Other people are doing other things, Mary Hardy with her Grail,
Holy Grail,
yeah, Holy Grail vortex, and other people. But that is what will happen if we all get it right. They're going to be placed. These energy vortices will be able to be placed over these, and it will adjust and modify the whole thing. Now, it's important to realize, though, all that's going on here is not preparing us to stay here forever in some kind of paradise, but to move forward into a world system too. That means things have to break down, and we will transition from this. So, but we must reach a certain point of parity with the spiritual vibration we were intended to receive. Sure, the rocks and soil can crumble beneath our feet. They're intended to at some point. But if we have our spiritual homogeneity together at a certain level, those of us who have chosen to receive that light code, then let it crumble, because we're ready to move through the light principle 40 encoding and into the New Earth star. It's science, it's quantum physics. So if we don't get these lines cleared, certain amount of them, we don't get to do that anytime soon. So it's important that we all work together so that they can do their part. Then they can come in and do their part. And these diamonds of light, I'm going to call them, will be able to activate these, clear these lines of contagion.
Right. So, and again, all of us doing our part. Well, what does that mean? And we've touched on this a lot, that the critical number of activated hearts on the planet, we always bring that in as being the trigger, as to say, the spiritual alignment, upliftment, that at a certain magical moment when Jupiter aligns with Mars and peace shall guide the planets, right? And love will steer the stars, that it's pyramidus radius matrix, pyramids light up all over the planet, LP40 is triggered. Now this brings back what came up in the video about the map regarding the Jehovian seals on the unnatural incursion places where boreholes were made so that arcanically invested bad guys could come in and vampirize the planet whenever they wanted to. That while these have been sealed during the time of the last reparation, whatever it is, 12, 24,000 years ago, that they now need not merely to be sealed, but to be eliminated, to be disintegrated, because when a sufficient number of hearts are activated and the whole thing kicks off, that if those are not completely eliminated, that during the kind of energetic upheaval that accompanies Light Principle 40 and the big transition and ascension, that this could mess the whole thing up.
Yeah,
Right.
it's like lead weights. It's like lead weights into the whole thing, because even though they're sealed off, we have to realize we're still getting a lot of damage going on. I mean, little grays are coming into people's houses and taking them and using probes on them and stuff. I mean, this is happening, we don't want to focus on it too hard because that's another path we don't want to go down, but it happens. It's just definitely happening all over the world. And then we have other things that are incursions. These are all incursions that are happening. And just the One World Legion is an incursion because they shook hands with the devil like the old guard did, And so
Right.
it's not like sealing off these boreholes. It's, oh, okay, everything's fine. No, there's still a lot going on. Why? Because well, for one thing, we didn't eliminate the boreholes. We just sealed them off. We tamped them down. But that's not the only thing. We can't just blame a bunch of boreholes because we as a human race have our own responsibility in all of this, and
Right.
what we draw in with our thoughts and minds and thinking, and who we do business with in this world and out of this world.
Yeah, there's an old horror movie called The Sentinel. I think it's from the late 70s, where there's this scary old house and there's this old woman who sits up in the attic. And as you pass by, walking by in the street, you can see the silhouette of this old woman at the top of this scary looking house. And what's she doing up there anyway? I don't know. You see her every day for years out past the place, And so the old woman like finally dies. And lo and behold, turns out she was the sentinel at something comparable to a borehole, that her presence was keeping back an invasion of Earth from this hellish realm. And so, the way the plot unfolds, of course, all these bad critters are unleashed until the heroine, I don't know, some, appealing young woman who ends up sitting down in the chair at the third floor overlooking, she's going to spend the rest of her life as the sentinel. But, and so the borehole is sealed by her presence, and this goes back to something that Sri Dayamata wrote about, and that is the woman who was the successor to Paramahansa Yogananda as the Sangamata, as she was known, which is the mother of the fellowship, the president of Self-Realization Fellowship. And she went to the holy place in India, the cave of Mahavatar Babaji, in 1963. And this is the cave where the great Avatar Babaji lived, a century before. and it was to be a place of pilgrimage. And Yogananda first revealed the existence of Mahavatar Babaji to the world in his autobiography of a yogi. And so on her way to the cave, Daima wrote of an experience she had of the blissful presence of the Mahavatar. And Mahavatar is literally in Sanskrit, Maha meaning great, Avatar meaning one who descends from oneness with God in order to help humanity. So Babaji, as a Mahavatar, he is an avatar who guides the work of avatars. He's the great avatar. And she had this blissful experience of his presence, and then she saw this dark cloud being unleashed upon the world, and confusion and darkness taking over the planet, and going on, for some time, until ultimately light shone forth and burst through and drove back the darkness. And so this is 1963, shortly before the assassination of John F. Kennedy, which is pretty reasonable date to give for a major downturn and darkness happening.
Yes.
Not that he was a perfect man or a saint or anything, but
no, it was a turn in history because at that point, you see, among other things, John Kennedy was about to reveal the connections between the negative ETs and the old guard, and he was about to reveal some other things about the old guard as well. And they said, we can't have this. So that's why he was taken out. And
yeah.
it's not only from Thoth I get this. I've seen some shows that have some real documentation. I mean, serious stuff, not crazy stuff, that shows that this was very likely
Yeah,
the
I mean,
case.
there's documents about, like, for example, what's called the Majestic 12, who were the secret committee appointed to handle the reality of alien presence on the planet and not tell the people, and how do we do it? And then next thing you know, well, okay, the Majestic 12 are just really, the cabal, basically. But the President of the United States was automatically, initially, a member of the Majestic 12. And when JFK, found out the real scenario. And he was also working to free the global collateral accounts at that
Yes.
time. He had made an agreement with President Sukarno of Indonesia, and was called the Green Hilton Memorial Agreement, to borrow assets from the global collateral accounts to fund what are known to history as Kennedy dollars, US Treasury dollars, as opposed to Federal Reserve dollars. In other words, to restore control over American currency to the Treasury as stipulated by the Constitution. And so he wanted to take the legs out from under the CIA and the Fed, and
the whole old guard would have been
expose the old guard. Right. So God bless him. It's a typically grand Irish ambition. And, like my great grandfather wanting to conquer Canada and trade it for the freedom of Ireland with the Fenian Raiders. God bless us all. So anyway, coming back around to where we are with this. Yeah, so with Sri Dayamata and the end of that story, which is that, so, we've been seeing a lot going on. And I was given the privilege of working with some of the senior monastics of Self-Realization Fellowship. And I asked one monk who I knew fairly well, a senior monk, about this. I was sharing with him some of the work I was doing with the Templars, and about the Cabal and the Fed and the rest of it, and he understood all this. And I said, well, Dayama's vision, back in 63, of the dark cloud coming over the earth, and JFK was killed that year, and so, okay, it's 40, 50 years, 60 years on now, how are we doing? It's light coming, and now it's pushing back the darkness. And this was about 8 or 9 years ago when I had this conversation with him. And brother said to me, well, Michael, I'm afraid the cloud is still very much with us, and it's going to get worse before it gets better. Mm-hmm. Yes. So that was like eight years ago. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping Hoping and praying that that we are nearing a time when the light begins to push all this back. And specifically, he knew and understood that it had to do with um, dark forces being unleashed on the planet, dark forces being able to invade our reality. So I just want to emphasize again for everybody who's tuning in, the light is winning and will win. And the reality of this map being shared, the reality of this coming forward through Maia, what it means, the reality of the hope that can be born in our hearts and be nurtured, is that this is the reigning dynamic. This is what we need to immerse in and ground our hearts, in this knowing. And for me as a storyteller, the power of story is, that's what timelines are. They want us to buy this Anunnaki story. Whatever story you buy is the one you're going to live. This is what it means to live your own personal myth, your own personal legend.
Yes.
So we need to stay in our awareness of the higher timeline, and that love is winning and will win.
Amen to that, brother.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe this is a good time to wrap up. Is there anything else that you feel is coming in for you that needs to be touched on?
Well, probably just a reiteration of what you said, in that Thoth always says to me, no matter what he shares, especially of the last few years that seems sort of dark and dreary, that we are beings of light. All we need to do is to realize how deep that is in us. And we can rise up victorious over any kind of darkness. It's in us to do that. And this is what they are, the star kindred and the inner earth kindred, angelics, all of these beings are just waiting for us. They're saying, they're forming a circle of light around us. They're saying, here we are, just say the word. But the word comes through the heart. It has to do with that synchronous sonic signal that literally comes out of the heart and echoes through all the hearts, or enough hearts. And when that medium of light is transferred through the heart on the level that they're waiting for, they can act. The diamonds can be over the nodes to clear it, and a lot of other things will start happening for us. But we have to be the ones who say the sacred word, and that comes from the vibration, the frequency of the hearts all connecting together.
Yes, that's it. That's it. As Yoda says in Empire Strikes Back, right? Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter, right?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So
that's it. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Again, please do check out newearthstar.org. And if you are interested in having an Akashic session one-on-one personally with Reverend Maia, that would be the place to make such a reservation.
Indeed.
Right. And for those of you who feel prompted to perhaps help us with this work, there's also a donation link below. We're very grateful for any help you can give to the Sacred Academy of Geoenergetics. The website there is Sage. So God bless us, everyone. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye for now.